What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined as always by Mr. William Monroe. Well, how you doing?
Steve, doing great over here. My team's in first place right now. How's your team doing?
No matter which one you're talking about, it's probably not ideal.
I was talking about my NFL team, the first place Philadelphia Eagles, man.
Oh, yeah.
Playoff
Well,
game.
I'm not sure that's something you want to brag about.
No. After last night's game, I think both teams technically get a loss. There's just no wins given out for that one.
No, yeah. It's just, it feels like every couple years you have one of those divisions that they're so terrible. I forget who it was that got into playoffs at 7-9 a couple years ago, but it starts that conversation as to whether one team from every division should actually get in. And we're definitely having that conversation this year.
Yeah, I think they'll probably always do that, but I could see them moving to a seeding is changed to your record, so you don't necessarily host a playoff game for winning your division.
I think that makes sense. That'd be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take, I think, multiple years of historically bad teams for them to make any real change there. But yeah, I think that
You'd
makes sense.
think.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But another week in the books here, about almost halfway through the regular NFL season, and coming down the home stretch here now. We're about probably 4 to 6 weeks of regular fantasy football before the playoffs for most teams. Yeah,
man, it's closing in. It won't be long before the trade deadlines come. So get all those trades in while we can.
Yeah, I believe the NFL trade deadline is this Thursday.
Yeah, it's this week. Wild. It went by quickly, didn't it?
That it did. And big week for that. Big week here in the U.S. for everyone that's going to go out and vote this week. I know you probably, as you're still a U.S. citizen, so technically living in Canada.
I get a absentee ballot. I did that a while ago, like a month ago.
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if you permanently changed. You technically can vote in both because are at a point if you have dual citizenship then, or
no?
How would that work?
I can vote in the federal election in the U.S. I can't do anything with state, to the best of my knowledge. Okay. And then I can, just federal, because my ballot only had the federal nominations. It didn't have any state nominations, so just federal. But it's actually the opposite here. So I am a permanent resident. I cannot vote in the federal, but I can vote in the provincial ones, which we haven't had one since I got here. But yeah, so
that's interesting. So it's like local elections that you can vote for.
Yeah, and everything's not to get too deep into it, but the election here is different in that you don't go and you vote for Trump or Biden, and then you vote for your senator and then your local people and stuff. You vote for your local person and only your local person. And then what happens is the parties are different, but if the Democrats come away with the most local people in that province, then that province
gets to vote for that party.
Yeah, the points go to that party. So you could, in theory, and this is why I really am not the biggest fan, you could go and say, well, I love Joe Biden. I want to vote for Joe Biden, but I don't like my local Democratic person. But in order to vote for Biden, you'd have to vote for your local person.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. I mean, I guess it keeps consistency within the province, but you'd think it's probably better to be able to kind of pick and choose along the ballot. Yeah. Even though I'm sure most people will kind of just do full ballots.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone, a lot of people tend to vote down the party line or whatever, but, you should be voting for who you like, and, there's a lot to it, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it just kind of removes that flexibility, but it's an interesting system.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. And a lot of big decisions out there. And if anyone's listening here Tuesday morning, get out there and vote. But in addition to big time things to do for Tuesday voting, we also have a Tuesday of putting your waiver claims. So we've got some players to talk about here, Steve. You ready to look into who you're going to put your vote in for on your top waiver?
Yeah, absolutely. I would, now that you pair the two together, I'd be really curious to see if there's waiver data for elections and seeing if there are fewer waiver claims that go in on election day compared to every other Tuesday. I wonder if, people are out voting or they're paying attention to TV and they just kind of forget about it.
You'd imagine, because I assume obviously now everyone's working from home, so you're at home already. But I assume most year when you get home from work on Election Tuesday, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, most people are probably working on dinner and then just have one of the news outlets on that they're getting the updates, and it could totally fall by the wayside.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's go ahead and jump into it. We'll start with our streaming quarterback options here. You have one of your top options always is a team playing against the Giants. You have Kyle Allen playing against the Giants this week. Only 4% owned. Are you interested in him?
Yeah, I think he's not a bad play compared to some of the other guys we'll talk about here. Probably in the middle of the ones available. It seemed like a lot of the ones I would want to play were, well over 50% owned. So there's not a ton of great streaming options, but the Giants have been really good against the run and not so good against the pass. I know the Eagles didn't look great against them 2 weeks ago, but really other than that, they've been pretty stout against the run and beatable through the air. So I don't mind starting Kyle Allen if you need to. I think we've only got 4 teams on bye this week. I'll fact check that real quick here. But there probably is going to be options out there with likely 28 starting quarterbacks available for you here in week 9. But yeah, Kyle Allen, definitely not a bad play. You have Terry McLaurin, who you're always going to be behind. They have 2 pretty solid pass catching running backs, and Logan Thomas is someone we'll talk about in the tight end section. Once again, I think we've talked about him a few weeks now. They have some decent options and a good matchup.
Yeah, I agree. He seems like an Alex Smith type where he's not going to burn you. He'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
He could have a blow up game that happen here and there, but he'll probably just be right in the middle. He'll get you that solid 20, 22, 23, something like that kind of points and be perfectly fine for you. So yeah, I'm pretty good on that front. We have the new hotness. He didn't have the biggest week in the world, but Tua is going up against Arizona, already 32% owned. Are you interested in Tua at all?
So he's one I actually picked up in a league that I've been kind of piecing the quarterback position together. Lucked out with Mr. Justin Herbert, but wanted to have someone in wings just because I imagine the other shoe's going to drop on him soon enough. So Tua is probably not someone I'm starting this week, but if you have an expanded roster because of COVID or any extra spots available, he's someone that I wouldn't mind stashing. I don't think he has the best schedule the rest of the way here, but he's someone that has a much higher just overall talent ceiling than most of the other guys we'll probably talk about. So while I'm not thrilled about the schedule and a rookie quarterback, I don't think anybody was banking on starting Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow, but they both have been startable in certain weeks. So put someone I'd rather stash but don't really want to play this week. And looping back, there's 4 teams on bye, so you'd be looking at the Bengals, Browns, Rams, and Eagles. So your Burrow and Carson Wentz and Jared Goff likely were people you were probably either relying on or streaming. So there's definitely a chance that you're going to have a couple teams that need to move and pivot to another quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tua, I'm kind of aligned you with on Tua. He's a good grab and hold kind of a guy to see, if that, in a couple games is that rushing ability of his turn him into something really great for fantasy. But
yeah,
see it first.
Especially for super flex. I have Lamar Jackson in one league, and my second guy's been Matt Stafford, right? So he hasn't been playing great. So Tua is a guy that I was able to just pick up there and say, okay, I can stash him. I had Andy Dalton, so he wasn't, someone that I was thrilled about. And both of my quarterbacks, Lamar and Stafford, are through their bye. So, you get kind of the upside play of a Tua if he breaks out, in the next couple weeks. But otherwise, you don't need to play him. But I think he'd be a really good third quarterback in Superflex to potentially plug in down the stretch here.
And we got 3 other quarterbacks. Let's go burn through them real quick here. Will, tell me who you like the most. I guess who you like the least. We got Kirk Cousins up against Detroit. We got Locke at Atlanta and Derek Carr at the Chargers. Who do you like out of that grouping?
Yeah, I just don't like Cousins. I'd say I'd probably put him third. I surprisingly think Locke is a decent play this week. He's got the weapons around him. He looked decent, in a big comeback win against the Chargers this week. And he's got Atlanta, who, is showing flashes here and there, but that could be somewhat of a higher scoring game. So yeah, I don't mind Locke, and Carr isn't a bad option as well out in LA. That should be a high scoring game too. I probably lean Carr for the floor, but maybe Locke has like a ceiling play against the Atlanta defense. But both I think are good options. Probably would rather roll with one of them over at Kyle Allen, but those would be the three here that I'd be looking at.
Yeah, I am probably in the same boat. I'm a little more okay with Cousins than you are. You know, Carr's fine. He's not bad. Matchup's fine. Locke has a lot of upside potential, but I mean, besides the last game, you know, the nice comeback drive for fantasy hasn't been too much since he got back. And, you know, maybe that's shaking off the injury and the rust, and now he's coming out of it. But, you know, the game script's there for Cousins as far as, you know, they both got beatable defenses. So it could work out. But yeah, I probably lean slightly Locke as well, just because that Atlanta matchup's always nice, but a little bit more warmed up to Cousins.
Yeah, so and not all these guys are, like you said, bye week or streamer options. Hopefully you have a better option coming off bye, or that you can roll with. But in a pinch, I think all these guys are playable.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving to the running backs here, we got Damian Harris, only 47% owned, but has the Jets this week. That's a big matchup there. Or not a big one, but a good one for him.
Yeah.
Interested in...
You want to play him in. I don't like the offense and don't like the team overall. So I don't know that I'm bidding a ton on Harris. He's had the volume. This seems to be a great game for him, so I wouldn't mind playing him if I had him, but not someone that I'm thrilled about and would want to throw a lot of fab at. What about you?
Yeah, probably in the same boat. I would be willing to throw more fab if I was in a bad spot and making that playoff push. As we said, it's coming up. So if I'm a team that's 500 and above, I'll throw a couple bucks at them. Not more than a couple, but a decent amount. If I'm below 500 and I need to buy myself a win, that's what I'm going to try to do here, because the matchup looks great against the Jets. I mean, they're the Jets, but you also don't know what's going to happen with the Patriots. I mean, Damian Harris he had a good week last week, but the weeks before that, he wasn't that great. So, it's also hard to predict. It's Jets. It could be Burkhead. It could be Cam. It could be no one. I mean, it's hard to say right now with that offense. I mean, the running back position's always murky in New England, but it's a tough one. But I'm willing to spend a little bit more if I am under 500 and needing to buy a win.
Yeah, agreed. Next up, we've got Zach Moss, who has been getting used. I think he had the touchdowns, which put him over the top there. But him and Singletary, I think both had about 80 yards, so both got some solid usage. And they've got Seattle this week. He's owned in 54% of leagues, so a little less than Harris, but Yahoo still available there. What do you think about Zach Moss?
I don't think it's a bad option. It always comes down to the touchdowns, right? Like if he doesn't score the 2 touchdowns, then you're fine with him. He got you 80 yards. That's good. A lot of it's going to come down to pass catching. His first week, I think he caught 3 bad catches. His first week back, he caught another 3, but then this week he didn't catch anything. So that is going to be the real differentiator to me. Seattle, to me, I look at that and say, he should be used as a pass catcher, and he could definitely sneak in and get a touchdown. So I think he could have a good week this week. They could also be pretty average, but I mean, if your baseline's just average, then I'm pretty okay with that. So I would take a shot on Moss, and I'd be willing to pay a fair bit, because I would assume if he has a good week this week, he could start stringing things together, and he could just start stealing that job away from Singletary. So, Moss, 20%, I think I'd be willing to go to around there somewhere. I mean, I think odds are it just ends up a 50-50 split all year. You'll be happy if you get the touchdown week, and you'll be okay if you don't. But yeah, I think he's got some upside to him. How about you? What do you think about him?
Yeah, I'm probably somewhere in the 10 to 20 range. Couple of, ancillary factors. He still has a bye coming up, so he's got one of the later buys. So you're adding someone, for the fab that is likely playing one less game than most of your other options. And looking at it here, realizing now the Bills have a pretty brutal schedule in the fantasy playoffs. They've got the Steelers in week 14, the Broncos in week 15, and the Patriots in week 16. So not the easiest schedule coming up here for them, especially in the fantasy playoffs. So Singletary may be a decent sell option coming up. Maybe tough to sell with Zach Moss and on, but I wouldn't mind. It's, especially just running backs are hard to come by. I don't know that I'm spending a ton on him here in this one.
Yeah, that's fair. Another one that is, we talk about him every week, start, sit, and waivers. He's a tough one. Jerick McKinnon, he is 74% owned, so most people do not have him available, but he gets Green Bay this week. What are you thinking or doing with McKinnon there?
Yeah, so, I put him in there just because I'm thinking a lot of people may have rage dropped him last week, because I'm sure that was much higher than 74 when he was supposed to be the only guy there. Definitely someone I'm willing to add if he's available. You have Jermichael Hasty as well at 42% ownership. So you just don't know if it's going to hit there, right? You're pretty confident that at least one of the running backs is going to do well, and in total the backfield will be good, but you just don't know who. So not knowing the Mostert injury, do we know anything about Jeff Wilson? I'm probably throwing, a little bit of fab on McKinnon. I probably would be okay with up to 20%, Hasty 5 to 10. But yeah, I'm not really thrilled either way. But that someone's going to go off there. So it's just a lottery ticket, really. They're hoping you got the right one.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add. I went on this rant last week. I think it was a start sets of like, you're just not going to trust any of them. Most of it's going to come back. And, by the time you figure it out that it is Hasty or it is McKinnon, he'll be back and it's going to ruin everything. And you don't know what week, and say Mostert's out the rest of the year. That's not going to happen, but say something happens, he has a setback, he's done the rest of the year. Still, you're going to struggle to trust McKinnon because of what's already happened. Like you're going to get 2 good games from him, and he's going to get good games because he got a usage, and then are they going to sit him down again and rest him? Like, I don't know. You don't trust him. We got Hasty on the list as well. Will, do you have any interest there?
To a lesser extent, like I said, probably somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. But he probably loses value as we get closer to Wilson, Mostert, or combination coming back. Coleman, was he active this week? I didn't see any final on him. Yep,
he was active. He played and he got hurt in the beginning of the game.
Sounds about right for this backfield.
Yep, right. It's amazing.
Going over to another crowded and potentially more frustrating backfield that we felt this week. You have Jordan Wilkins, 2% owned, and Nyheim Hines, 29% owned. Both behind or Jonathan Taylor, at least in our mind. Not on the field this week, though. Jordan Wilkins has a great game, carries the ball 20 times for 89 yards and scores. I think he had enough reception as well, so he looks very good. I think he vultured the touchdown from Taylor, who couldn't punch it in the play before. Nyheim Hines goes off through the air. What are we doing with this backfield?
Well, Wilkins is going to be a hard pass. These games happen. Wilkins has had games in the past. It is what it is. Apparently, Taylor was banged up. Not hurt enough to come out of the game, but banged up to some degree.
Probably riding the hot hand to a degree as well, right?
Yeah, probably. And, I think the Colts have said in the past that, they're okay using Taylor less and keeping him fresh for like a playoff run and whatnot. So, maybe we'll see him explode later. But Wilkins, I'm not interested in. They got Baltimore this week, which makes me extra not interested. So if you want to place your bet on Wilkins, knock yourself out. But I can't see that working out very well.
And I don't mind Hasty Hines as a pass catching back in like a PPR league, maybe even half point PPR as your depth guy or bye week replacement. But I don't think you can count on Wilkins, and they got the Baltimore Ravens coming up next, so it could be tough sledding across the board for all of these running backs this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll throw out 2 more names here real quick, Will, before we move on to tight ends. We got DJ Dallas, our good guy we've put a lot of trust into.
Yeah, drafted and traded in the rookie draft.
He's got Buffalo, and then Cam Akers, 31% owned. He is on a bye this week, but we saw Henderson go down the injury, so both of them are interesting. Are you interested in either of them for picking up?
I probably throw in a speculative claim on Cam Akers. I don't mind holding him to the bye and seeing if Henderson is more injured and can't get healthy for the bye week. I think Cam Akers is a really good play if that is the case. But if not, then he's just relegated to your bench. DJ Dallas, I think you're banking on once again everybody else being hurt, and even then, I imagine they probably try to bring someone in, or I don't even know. Were they able to bring any running backs in this week that just couldn't play because of COVID protocols?
I don't think they did. Not that I remember seeing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was weird because me and you were thinking that Procise would get brought in.
Yeah, or somebody. Yeah. It sounded like they thought that Carson had a chance to play actually, and I guess he just missed kind of last minute. But maybe they're thinking, yeah, he can be back this week against the Bills. Probably have a chance at Hyde, and I think Homer played but got hurt again. If I remember that right.
Yeah, something to that degree.
So yeah, I don't know that any of them are will or won't play, but Dallas is really a speculative ad, even more so than Akers with 3 guys ahead of him on the depth chart. If any of them play, it really relegates him to backup duty.
Yeah, and that's kind of the worry for me is, like you said, Carson was kind of a game time decision. I think most people didn't think he was going to play, but they officially made him a game time decision, which means he's not that far away. So, could Dallas work himself into a permanent role of some fixture? Sure. Is it going to be a fantasy relevant role? Probably not. So I don't mind him, but he's also got Buffalo this week, which isn't the greatest matchup in the world. I think I'd rather pass. I'll take a shot on Cam Akers. That is.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I would bid for him, given that they're on a bye week, and I don't think Henderson's injury is going to be that serious. So the bye week's going to give him time to rest and come back. But I'd take a shot there and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm okay with a couple of dollars because most people maybe are just looking at the week 9 projected points, and he won't show up there. So maybe you can kind of get him cheaper. So it's something that's interesting. If a quality player is dropped on their bye week, sometimes they do go unseen. So it could be a guy that you can kind of get on the cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving to the wide receiver positions, this guy keeps coming up. I can't believe his ownership's not higher, but Mike Williams.
Yeah, I'm all in, man. If you can get him, I think you fire him up the rest of the way. As long as Herbert stays hot, he is. He had a little blip the week before, but coming off Herbert really getting into it, he goes 5 for 109 and 2 touchdowns in week 5. Has the bye week, has a down week, only 1 catch for 4 yards in week 7, but another 5 catch, 99 yards and a touchdown this week. I am all about it. I think Herbert seems to be the real deal, and as long as he keeps doing like this, with Vegas, Miami, and the Jets on the horizon here, you don't see any immediate stops. So I don't. I'm in if you can get him. I don't like to spend up on receivers, but I'm okay to spend somewhere in the 10-20 range if he's still available.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Sterling Shepard, we talked about last week. I don't know if we have anything really more to add. 43% owned. He's got Washington. He should be owned, in his week back. He got the most targets for the team, and, we know he's a talented guy. Nothing's really changed in your opinion, right?
No, I think he's good, and he's it stinks for Golden Tate and Slayton, but it seems like Shepard's the guy that they want to get the ball primarily, and the other guys are ancillary pieces in the passing game. So he's the guy that you are going to play out of the 3. You can play Slayton as kind of your upside guy, but I don't know that I want any piece of Golden Tate. He couldn't do it without Shepard. But Shepard looks like a good play week to week. It's not a great offense, but he's going to get targets. So yeah, I don't mind picking him up. I'm not spending up on too many of these other guys here. So, somewhere in the 5 to 10 range, you're probably looking maybe a little more for him, 10 to 12. I don't know that it gets it done. Probably got to go a little higher if you really want to get him the way he's been playing. Is he coming off the bye, though? Oh, no, they're playing tonight. So that may make it even more difficult depending on how he does here being on the national stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey Davis up here again, 48% owned, but so available about half of leagues, has Chicago. Seems like a good guy to add just to have as a boom bust potential if you need that upside shot, right?
Yeah, back-to-back good weeks. I mean, 6 catches, touchdown last week, and he gets 8 catches over 100 yards and touchdown this week. So I think he's someone that has to be rostered from here on out. I'm not sure that he is going to be, consistent with A.J. Brown across the way, but he's someone that on an offense that's moving the ball has a shot to score every week.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some productive weeks out of him, finally. I know there's a lot of Corey Davis fans that are really happy with what we've seen this year, just to prove that he is
he's been consistent.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got him up. He's got 13.5 in week 1, 11 in week 2, 9.5 in week 3. This is half-point PR for our league. Bye week, he misses 2 weeks, and then 12.5 last week and 23 this week. So he's a guy that I think has to be rostered if he's not already.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw this, Will, given we're talking about Corey Davis having the big week, A.J. Brown had the bad week. Do you know A.J. Brown was actually not shadowed by William Jackson in that game? So they didn't have him shadowed. The Titans just lined him up on Jackson's side of the field almost the entire game, but he wasn't actually shadowing him. It was a Titans mistake. And it's like, wow, how do you, you just didn't adjust at all and try to move him around and see what happened? Like, it's kind of mind blowing, but that's what they're saying.
I mean, with the results of the game, I think they were surprised at a lot of things the Titans were this week. Bengals came out and looked good without Joe Mixon as well.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But moving along, we got 2 Lions here, Marvin Jones and Marvin Hall. Got Minnesota, so a great matchup against the Vikings defense there. Interested in either of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to add them as kind of speculative ads with Kenny Golladay, I think already listed as doubtful, just coming off this week here and with the hip injury week to week, he's been kind of banged up in and out all year. And if he's out, I think you got to look for Marvin Jones, Marvin Hall, maybe. I mean, I guess Cephas and Amendola, so you don't really know. Jones the guy to own, and the other ones I think are all kind of you're hoping for a big play or for that they're the other guy. But I think Marvin Jones is a guy that you can fire up, whenever Kenny Galladay's hurt.
Yeah, I think he's solid. Marvin Hall is interesting in a real deep league. I feel like he has like a game or 2 a year where he's decent. He had a nice week last week. Stafford's worked with him in the past, so maybe he's got a little bit more of a rapport, and somebody else has to catch the ball there. Maybe it's just Hawk and the running backs, make up the gap if Golladay doesn't play. But he's not a bad ad in a real deep league. If you're in your kind of standard 12-team league and it's not that deep, then I'll pass. But in a deeper league, he's an okay shot to take. Take a look at our last options here, Will. We got Mims, Kirk, and Curtis Samuel playing the Patriots, Miami, and the Chiefs, respectively. Who do you like out of that group? Who do you not like?
Yeah, I think they're all pretty good. Mims, I want to roster him. He had 2 catches for 42 yards, so showed that he can make some big plays. Just didn't get the volume. New England's tough defense, even with a lot of people out. So I'm not playing him. But Christian Kirk, with the Miami defense is pretty good, but you imagine they're going to have to shadow Hopkins. So Kirk seems good. And Samuel, I mean, if you need a big play, I think against Kansas City, they're likely going to have to pass the ball a good bit more. I fall into the trap, of always assuming I want to play the weapons going against KC. But their defense is pretty good, so take that into consideration too. Kind of a boom or bust play, depending on how many touches he gets. But he got in the end zone multiple times this week, so I think Kirk and Samuel are both decent flex options.
Yeah, I agree, and probably in that order. I'd rather start Kirk. Samuel's a fine upside shot. We've talked about him in the past. If he's kind of like who are we talking about? Zach Moss, where if he gets a touchdown, you're really happy for the week. If he doesn't, you're not burned, but it's not great either. You're like in that 8-point range or something, which is solid. So he's a fine guy. Mims, like you said, he showed some flash. he's more of a long-term hold. You don't want to trust anyone on the Jets. So it kind of is what it is. So I agree with you on that front. Moving to tight end, Mr. George Kittle looking a little banged up here. So you got Jordan Reed that could be looking to play. We also have Dwelly. Popped a lot last year with some good games, both of them playing Green Bay. Interested in the 49ers tight end duo there?
I think you have to be, at least, take your shot on one, because I think last I'd seen they're expecting Kittle to miss, 8 weeks. So if he's out pretty much the rest of your fantasy season, these are two guys that have done well in the past. Now you're probably not going to have Garoppolo in the short term either. So not sure how good either can be as a top end. But I don't know. It's interesting. I think they're good speculative ads, but I don't know that they're going to have a ton of upside. So if you really need something, but I think there's a couple of other guys we'll talk about here that I'd rather have.
Yeah, they're fine, and you don't really know which one's it going to be. And if it's going to be Reed, how long is it going to be? So it's, they're fine ads if you're in trouble at tight end or you just lost Kittle. I agree. But yeah, my expectations aren't too high. We got Logan Thomas, again, a guy we talk about every week. 22% owned. Has the Giants this week. Giants are actually pretty good against a tight end, but if memory serves, he's got a really good schedule like rest of the season. What do you think about Logan Thomas?
Yeah, he's probably, out of the guys we'll talk about here, the one that I would be targeting if I need tight end. Obviously, as you said, not the best matchup, but he seems to be one of the favorite targets. It's him and Mclaurin down the field, and then the running backs for dump-offs. So I am more than okay playing Logan Thomas this week, even in a tough matchup, and then using him kind of rest of the season, barring any injuries or new breakouts.
Okay, and we'll kind of lump the remaining three guys together because that's kind of what you do with tight ends sometimes. We have Trey Burton, Eric Ebron, and Austin Hooper. Who do you like? Who do you not like out of that group, Will?
Yeah, Hooper more of a speculative ad. He's going on bye this week, but with the injury, he may be coming off. And with OBJ out there, there's targets to go around. So he could be someone that you might be able to get on the cheap, even after the waivers pass. Ebron and Burton's interesting. I don't think we can ignore Trey Burton at this point. They're using him in really interesting ways as trick play. I think they had him in there as the Wildcat at a point. So I think he's a tight end that is getting a lot of usage in different ways. So I think I probably would play him over Ebron. Both are, like you said, speculative options, but I think Burton, someone we gotta, after a couple of weeks of being used, they really want to get him in the game plan.
For me, I think it's just going to depend on the matchup. I mean, Hooper, I'm not really that interested in regardless. The OBJ stuff is kind of interesting, but meh, not the most happy. But Ebron and Burton, I like both, and it's going to depend on the matchup. So, if you look at this week, Ebron's got Dallas, Burton's got Baltimore. I'll take Ebron pretty easily.
Yeah, you just got to hope he gets the touchdown.
Exactly, but moving forward, I'm going to take it on a week-by-week basis. I'm not going to bid a lot for either of them. If you're the Kittle owner, if I really like one of them, I really like Ebron, I'd be willing to throw down $5, $6. I don't think you need to pay a lot unless you have somebody that likes to overpay after one big game. Know your league a little bit. But, yeah, I think you'd end up bouncing back and forth between those two guys the rest of the season.
Yeah, and last up here, we'll look at a couple defensive streaming options. You have the Titans once again on our list here. They're going against the Bears. Bears, a good record, but just can't seem to get out of their own way at times. So I think that's not a bad play. And then the Washington football team plays the Giants, who have been turnover prone as well. So I think they're a decent play. Either of them interest you if you need a defense?
To a degree. I actually don't know which I like more, though, because the Titans defense hasn't been as good as I think a lot of people expected to going into the season. But like you said, decent matchup against Chicago. On the flip side, I think Washington's defense has been better than expected. And like you said, the Giants are a good matchup, but Giants were also just on a bye. And that extra week of preparation... Wait, Giants were on a bye, right? Yeah.
They were. They came off their bye this week.
Yeah. So they wait, no, they didn't. The Giants are playing tonight.
There you go. So
Yeah,
it seemed
so
like
they
they were
didn't.
on a bye because they didn't play yesterday.
Yes, right. That's why I'm confusing. So then that makes it a lot easier. I like Washington. My whole basis for not liking them was thinking the Giants were on a bye, that extra week of prep that kind of scares me off a lot of the times when it comes to defenses. But now it's actually the reverse. They're on a short week. So I will I'll take Washington and be pretty happy with that. I would be a little bit worried because, Daniel Jones, we've seen him throw the ball around a lot before. He's got some fast weapons. They could put up some points, but it hasn't been happening a lot. So, yeah, I'll take Washington there. I also like how you put it in our doc. Instead of Washington football team or just Washington, you just wrote team. Team out of Washington. That's fair. Oh, man. Give us a follow on Twitter at Trust Your Board per the normal. Hit us up with some polls. You always comment and retweet on those. And tune in on Thursday for some start, sit, and trade questions. Until then, folks, trust your board.